In 2013, I coined the name Grampian, and I gave it to your host, Jim Tracy.
Grampian Nation, welcome back to the Grampian. And we are so proud that Grandpa gets to chat with champions because today I got a guy, and sometimes the host just has to get out of the way and let an amazing guest tell the story. And that's what I'm going to try to do today. I'm going to welcome Chad Foster. Chad Foster. He is a speaker, author, executive, agent of change. Plus, P.S. Fair warning, he is a working dog guy, the author of Blind Ambition. Chad Foster, welcome to Champion Nation, man.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So where are you located?
I refresh my luggage, as my wife says, in Atlanta.
All right.
I travel a bit for work, being a keynote speaker, doing events all over the U.S. and the world. This year, I've done a lot of international stuff. So tend to spend a lot of time in the Sky Club, but home base is Atlanta, Georgia.
All right. Well, I hope you're at home for Thanksgiving.
I am, thankfully. Yeah, I had a bit of a run there. I think I was on the road 43 out of 55 days in the lead up.
Wow.
So it's nice to get a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
Take a knee, get some time with kids, recharge the batteries, and get ready to go into the home stretch of the end of the year here.
Yeah. So I know two guys who've written about ambition. The first one, it would be really proud of you. His name is Seth Bueckley. He wrote Ambition, Leading with Gratitude. But as I approached Thanksgiving, I read Blind Ambition. I'm like, dude, your book is as much about gratitude as Seth is. So give us kind of the backstory about who Chad is.
Yeah. So the short version is, I went blind at 21 years old from an inherited eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa that nobody in my family knew that we had. My parents could see fine. My brother could see fine. They noticed that I was having problems in poorly lit situations when I was a kid, so they took me to Duke University, and it was there where the doctors at Duke diagnosed me with retinitis pigmentosa, or RP for short. They sent my parents home. I was, almost 4 years old, told them that, hey, you should put him in a special school for the blind. So my parents listened to that advice, and instead they signed me up for soccer. And that was sort of the beginning. They didn't want to put me in a corner and have me feel sorry for myself. So they didn't do any of those sorts of things. I played sports when I was growing up. I rode bikes, rode a motorcycle, drove a car, all the things that I could do while I could do it. Never could really see at night to drive because of my poor night vision. And, when I was in college, started at around 18, 19, 20. By the time I was 21, realized that the gig was up. I couldn't see during the day anymore. Had to get a medical withdrawal from my major, from my classes. And, everything I wanted to be, I wanted to go into pre-med to help other people. And so I go blind in college, and it hits me that I'm not even sure if I can help myself. So, I had to switched my major to business, lost nearly 3 years of university work, had to hit the reset button, went to Leader Dogs for the Blind at the time to get my first guide dog because I had to find a way to just get mobile. How would I get around? How would I walk around university campus? And went there with this really pathetic victim mentality. Woe is me, the sky's falling, none of my friends are blind, and it's not fair, life's not fair. And I met people there that just really brought that gratitude perspective, to my life. I met people there. Some of them had multiple disabilities,
Wow.
So they were dealing with dialysis and going for regular dialysis, and they're blind. And some of them had mental impairments and they were blind. And I'll never forget these girls there who were deaf and blind, and they were getting a dog to be independent. And the living courage exemplified by these people just blew the self-pity right out of me. I was ashamed of my pathetic victim mentality after witnessing how these incredible people live for the 26 days that I was there in Michigan. And so I came back with a newfound appreciation for what I do have. A lot of people focus on what they lack, but they don't really focus on what they have. And so that experience showed me that it is really what you have. And, we hear all the time the cliches about looking at what you have versus what you lack. But when you live with somebody, you see it firsthand. You get to breathe it, experience it. It just puts it in a new perspective. And for me, it flipped the script for me on the spot. I came back and my attitude was changed because I was anchored to gratitude. A lot of people want to be happy and they think, oh, once I'm happy, then I'll be grateful. Well, it's actually the opposite. It's like
Yeah.
once you're grateful, then you become happy, and that lays the foundation for everything.
That's really appropriate talking about that coming up on the week of Thanksgiving. And I hope we get this podcast out right before Thanksgiving because it is appropriate. It's difficult. Number one, for the folks who are watching, I'm smiling at the wrong times, it seems, because I already read the book. And so when he says stuff, I'm reacting to like later chapters. But one of the things that is really cool when you explain that 26-day program. This is a leaders program. Why do they call it a leaders program? It's a leader dogs program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's very much a team effort, what we have to do, partnering with the dogs. And you've worked with working dogs. You understand. These dogs are great, but you can't go up to the dog and say, hey, I want to go to Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. I'm at gate A32. Let's go. And, off you go. It's a little more complex than that. So obviously the dog has to be trained. They have to know left from right. They have to know that they are, in fact, leading somebody. So the concept of, hey, we're going to put this harness on you and you need to get comfortable with this harness. And when somebody's holding it, you have to watch where you walk and make sure you don't bump them into things and watch out for overhanging obstacles and curbs and ramps and all the things. And it's a lot, it's a lot, but they don't know, and they can't read signs.
Yeah.
They can't read traffic patterns. They don't know when the red light's red or green or whatever. And so it's up to us as a team to help them lead and so to empower them to lead. And so we have to understand, when do we think it's appropriate to go? What's the map of where we're going? I get into the airport and I have a map in my head of Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. I know I go into door S1 and I make a right and I go over to my the clear pre-check counter. And from there, I know where I need to go to get to the escalator and the train. And then once I get to the concourse, I have a map in my head of where I need to go, but I need to communicate that to the dog. So my guide can help me point to point. So I can tell him, hey, right, escalator. Okay, we're up the escalator. All right, forward. And let's go straight. And then up here, we get to the point where I think we need to make a left, and we go left. And so they're great point to point, and they can help us navigate obstacles point to point. But contrary to popular belief, you can't say, all right, let's go to, 1142 Broadway Street and they take you there. It doesn't quite work like that.
But the people don't realize that just like any canine, your leader dog might be leading you, but you're the alpha. Isn't that accurate?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially me, German Shepherds are my thing. I love German Shepherds. And so there's an old saying, and I think it's very true. If you don't give a German Shepherd the rules, they'll be glad to tell you what the rules are. And so there are people who think they want German Shepherds, and there are people who actually need German Shepherds. And the Shepherds I get nowadays are pretty easy to work with. They're easy to manage. They're not super alpha. I've had ones that are super alpha, where if you don't stay on top of it, you could have a problem.
Yeah.
With a German Shepherd. The ones I get nowadays, they've kind of bred them down a little bit. They're pretty soft and cuddly. They act like more like labs, to be honest with you, than they do German Shepherds. But you get a hold of one of these old school alpha German Shepherds, and if you're not the alpha in the relationship, you can have a real problem, because these little behaviors can spill over into bigger behaviors. And you might have a dog and think it's no big deal if the dog does something like you open the door and it darts out before you give it permission. Well, that's a little behavior that spills over into other behavior.
Yeah, no
and
kidding.
So it all kind of, creates this slippery slope. And so with the service dogs, especially because so much is riding on them, it's very important to have the right structure, relationship, and foundation of common respect. Like I love my guy, and he's got to love me. He's got to think I'm fun guy to be with and to work for, but he also has to respect that when I give a command, it's not a request,
Right.
it's a command, and it
Right.
needs to be executed. And there are a few exceptions to commands that, certain things that you do ask, like forward is never a command. When you say forward, the voice inflection and the reinforcement helps to teach the dog that this is not a command. This is, I want to move forward. I think it's safe to move forward. You use your judgment, and if it is, move. And if it's not, don't. And either way, if you don't move when I think you should, I'm going to praise you because I want to reinforce the idea of intelligent disobedience to the dog in
Yeah.
a
Hey,
command
Fido.
that's as crucial as moving forward.
Hey, Fido, confirm all my suspicions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think we're good. Dog doesn't
Yeah.
move. Okay, what do I know? You should, yeah, good job. Stay there, ignore me.
So I hate to have this whole thing focus on dogs, but everybody who's ever had a dog had that one dog, and I've had 5 different working labs, and
Yep.
they've all shown in different ways, but there's one that just owned me. Is there one, as you look back now? You've had quite a few dogs. Your first one was named
Miles.
yeah, and so out of all the dogs that you've had now. Is there one that just owned you?
When you say own, help me understand what you mean by that.
Stole your heart. The one that if you could
Oh,
have that dog back, man, you'd take it.
gosh, they're all great. Maybe Romeo.
Yeah.
Um, Romeo was awesome. Miles, he was interesting. He was my first, and he was by far the smartest dog I've ever seen.
Uh-huh.
He made Lassie look kind of dumb. He was just brilliant. He could find my hotel room in a hotel with thousands, literally on
Yeah.
the first try. My hotel room. He could find our car in a parking lot from inside the mall. He could take us straight to the back of the car. I don't know how he did it, other than maybe he used some form of scenting that he had never been trained to do. He just instinctively could do all that. We couldn't even find it,
Yeah.
but he could find the car. Really, really intelligent. Not the easiest to train. You could, if you could convince him to do it, he would learn the first time. But he was hard headed. He was like, "Yeah, I don't think I really want to do that today."
Yeah.
He was kind of hard headed and thought he knew better than me, and a lot of times he did know better than me.
Yeah.
He was a sharp dog, not the most trainable in some regards. Romeo was he was pretty balanced. He had a little bit of that shepherd spirit in him. A little bit chippy,
Hmm.
towards other people, other strangers. A lot of love for us. First got home with our daughter, Juliana. She was born back in 2008, and he just slept outside her room, and he was a 115-pound German Shepherd. Nobody was getting in her room, I can promise you.
You're welcome to
You better
try.
have your permission slip to get by Romeo. But he's just a great dog. We had him for about 10 years, and he was a remarkable dog. Could do it all. He could
Right
do it
on.
all.
Right on. So, my buddy Seth, again, he talks about when your attitude becomes gratitude. He calls it, like, instead of an attitude adjustment, he calls it gratitude adjustment. And as I read your book, I thought, wow, when you first got out of school and you're on your own, and life is not terrific, we'll say, right away, because there's
Yeah,
obstacles and there's stuff, and now you got a new town and a new this and a new that and a new dog, and all of a sudden, like,
yeah.
whoa. But I sensed that that was the place where you actually got like that gratitude adjustment. Is that accurate?
See, the most significant gratitude adjustment I mentioned when I was getting my first dog, but yeah, that was almost instant on the spot, 180-degree reversal because of the shift from the poor me victim mindset into something more productive. I think what I found when I was getting that, getting used to that job here in Atlanta, when your gratitude becomes the anchor point for your life, it does adjust your attitude. And when you have a positive attitude, people just want to be around you. They want to, like, doors just opened up for me. people wanted to help me. My life became easier, not because I was any better at it necessarily, but because I was, I was fun to be around.
Yeah.
People appreciated the fact that I was dealing with some difficult circumstances with such a great attitude and such comfort in my own self. I didn't walk around trying to pretend to be somebody I was not. I had to own my situation because I walked everywhere with a 100-pound German Shepherd. You can't hide a German Shepherd
Yeah.
when you walk into a conference room. So you got to own that, you got to own it. And I did. I owned it. I didn't make apologies for it. I refused to do that. It's like, look, these are my circumstances. I didn't sign up for this, but I'm going to deal with it as best I can. I'm not going to live a life that doesn't allow me to have some fun. I want to have a little bit of fun along the way, and I want to be able to connect with people. The only way I can do that is continue to bring that lightness. And so, yeah, I take my job very seriously, and I take the work that I do very seriously, but I don't take my situation so seriously that I can't have fun about it. And that tends to really resonate with people.
That's awesome. As I read about your dad in the book, and as I reflect on my own father, I'm thinking our dads were kind of hard noses, and they built
Yeah.
us in many ways into what we are. But
Yeah.
in my own case, fear of failure has been kind of a constant companion for me and a driver,
Mm,
really. Like as we talked about before
yeah.
the show, that like tell me I
Yeah.
can't, man, and that's going to lay it
Yeah.
down. But it sounds
Yeah.
like fear of failure has been an asset to you as well.
Yeah. I kind of used, whether it's a fear of failure or the doubters, the naysayers, the people who looked at me coming up, dealing with some challenging circumstances, and nobody, very few people wanted to bet on me.
Yeah.
And I kind of relished that because I used it as fuel. Did I have a chip on my shoulder? Yeah, you bet I did. I did. And I poured every bit of it into my academics. I made straight A's at the University of Tennessee after I went blind, and I had to relearn how to learn.
Yeah.
And I did it because I was relentlessly committed to making it work. My mom at that point in time, she decided the only way I was going to get my academics, because I was a visual learner. Come to find out, that's not all that helpful when you go blind. And late 90s, early 2000s, we didn't have a bunch of books on tape or digitally available. And so she had to read every single book to cassette for me. And when somebody does something like that, they read every single word of every single college business book. You can't let them down. And so I was really committed, to using that edge that I had from people who weren't willing to bet on me, and the people who were, and making sure that I made those people, proud of me. And I did the best that I could to do that. And that first manifestation of that was relearning how to learn, making straight A's, making the dean's list, getting a good job with a top consulting firm. And I just continued to take all my frustrations that I encounter, whether that's systems that didn't work when I was entering the workforce, or having to just deal with just so many different challenges. Like, how am I going to get my laundry done? I can't drive, and I have one hand to carry my stuff. And here I am starting a new job in a new city that I don't know. I have to learn the bus and the train system without being able to see. P.S. I got to learn how to write code to engineer software without being able to see my computer screen. Crisscross the U.S., go to client sites that I've never been to. I just went blind a year ago, so what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I had to figure all that stuff out. And it was scary. I'm not going to lie. It was scary, but I realized that, the potential of not knowing what was possible for me was scarier than the failure. And so I leaned into what might happen. Okay, yeah, I might get lost. And I started to approach every new challenge that I had with this sense of adventure, and just finding out, where are my limits and can I move those limits? And over time, I found out that I could move some of those limits, but none of that ever would have happened had I not decided to lean into the fear and not let the fear control me. Because there was a time or two before I moved to Atlanta, I thought maybe I don't want to move. People would ask me, "Are you excited?" yeah, of course I'm excited, but I was lying to them. I was scared to death, you know? I was scared to death, and
Right
I just
on.
didn't know how it would go, and I might have to crawl home with my tail tucked between my legs, but in the vast ocean of life, as long as it is, the long arc of time, the thing that scared me more than anything was not knowing how successful my life could have been. The regret of not even trying, and so I couldn't live with that, and so I used all that as fuel, and
Sweet.
whether that was in the gym, like I would go into the gym and work out and let my frustrations out there. I tried to take all the energy, the doubt, and anxiety and all that and just plow it into as many things that were as productive as possible, whether that's lifting weights or, certain sports or, reading and consuming information, learning how to write code so that I could do my job more effectively. I tried to use my energy as wisely as I could.
Right on. So, note to Grampian Nation: number one, be grateful for your moms. They're the first ones who are always there for you, and you it didn't matter who you are, you wouldn't be there without them. So,
Amen.
add to that you had a relatively, I don't even want to say relatively, you had an incredibly successful business career. Tell us about, like, there's always those one or two deals where you landed them. One was the big one I know from the book was the last one. Tell us about, like, the art of the deal from a Chad Foster perspective.
Well, I really enjoyed that work. It was a lot of solving the puzzle of the deal. And so we would work on these large technology deals. And my job was to figure out what's the right strategy for the deal. And so I was a senior director over our pricing strategy and solutions group. And I'd get a deal come across my desk, and it might be a $700-800 million deal. And, there were some $5 billion plus deals that we worked on. And you get those and you start looking at, my job was to look at the publicly available information. So I'm looking at spending levels that we could find for what's going on currently with the deal, trying to find information on the previous solicitation, reverse engineering. How did people win it before? What were the award tendencies of this particular customer? How do they like to award it based on a savings profile? How many people do we need to do the work? So I built parametric models from other deals that I'd worked on, had a library of deals I could pull out and say, all right, let me size this environment based upon how many servers are there? How much storage is there? How many network ports are there? How many end user computing devices are we supporting? How many help desk calls are we fielding? What's the average handle time? What's the first call resolution rate? What's tier 2 and tier 3 support look like? How's all this connected? How many applications are we supporting? What are the SLAs? And so you develop an idea bottoms up based on sizing information, how many people we need. You look at where the work's being located, how much you're going to pay these people, what's a competitive overhead rate to use, and top down, what's the market price for this? What are other people willing to bid this for to win it? What sort of unnatural things are they willing to do to be aggressive and try and capture it? And how do we predict what other people are going to do, outmaneuver them to win the work at the point of sale, influence it during the pre-sale strategy? So we called it the financial intimacy maturity model. How do we socialize and kind of influence the work towards our direction, captured at the point of sale, and then having a post-sales execution strategy. So 3 separate
Yeah.
strategies: a pre-sale strategy for influencing, point of sale strategy for capturing, and then a post-sales get well plan, if you will, a post-sales strategy for improving margin over time and making sure all those things were interconnected, where we could look at top down, what's the price? How do we structure the price across the various contract line items that we had? How do we make sure we have enough vehicles in this contract so that we can get well over time? Because you look at the point of sale P&L and it's a really ugly single digit gross margin number that everybody gets, a little bit of bad taste in their mouth when they look at it.
Yeah.
But you got to have a plan over the next 5 years to make it profitable. And so that's what I was able to do. I was able to combine the vantage points of an engineer level understanding about the technology and the headcount needed to support the environment, a program management standpoint about how to run the program and the contract to make sure we have enough levers in it so that we can run it effectively, and then the top down sort of budgetary macroeconomic view of how do we actually win this thing, and competitive understanding of what will our most aggressive competitors do, and how do we outflank them and capture that.
Yeah. So, in layman's terms, you wanted to make the customer love you. You wanted to come up with a bid that was a dime lower than your nearest competitor, and and then you wanted to execute it where you could kick in a change order and make some money, right?
Something like that. Yeah, that's a pretty good summary of it. Absolutely.
All right. All right. You know,
Yeah.
I always say that 85% of business is all the same. And it's the other 15% that's the art. So
Yeah.
what
It was fun. There's a lot of puzzle solving, and yeah, you're right. That last one I worked on, that one was gratifying because I did all that and even handed over a turnkey basis of estimate document and all that for the technical team, and did everything, and then walked off. And that was my last day. And I got an email 5 months after I'd left that we ended up winning that deal. So that was
right
pretty
on.
cool.
Riding off into the sunset, but not to be calm and demure and sit and get sedate, because you said, "Gee, I think I'm going to go out and I'm going to tackle the market of keynote speaking," which is not the easiest thing in the world to do.
Yeah.
But that's for a sighted person. Tell me about your adventure there.
Mhm. Well, it was when I went to Harvard Business School. My previous employer had sent me to Harvard because I brought in so much business for the company. And they asked me what they could do for me. And for some wild reason, I asked them to write a six-figure check and send me to Harvard. And for some even crazier reason, they agreed. So they sent me there. And you think you go to Harvard, you're going to learn about business and case studies and all that. And we did, certainly. But maybe the most poignant thing for me that I learned was when I learned with Bill George, who teaches the True North Leadership Framework, and how do you mine your life's experiences to find moments that affected you at a deep emotional level during some of these more formidable moments in your life. And so I realized that I'd never really done anything with my life experience of going blind. People would come up to me and tell me from time to time, "Oh, hey, it's inspiring. What you're doing is inspiring." It's like, I wasn't trying to inspire anybody. I was just trying to hustle, trying to get to my next goal, and never really took any of that seriously. And then I had that moment there at Harvard where I realized that I could be doing more if I were to link these hardships that I've been through in my life to what I'm doing on a professional level, where I maybe have a little bit of talent too. And that's the essence of what Bill talks about in True North. And so I was elected as a graduating speaker there at HBS. I ended up delivering that and did very well because I had a premonition that that was going to happen. So I prepared for it, being a type A person that I was. And it just completely shifted my life. It changed everything, Jim, because I had a guy come up to me and he's telling me something I'd said had helped him. He's like literally bawling in my arms. I found out later on that this guy had lost a child
Oh my.
to cancer, and it.
Whew.
I've always been kind of a hard edge guy. It's kind of how I am. My dad was raised me with a lot of straight talk, a lot of difficulty, and being stern about things. And obviously, my situation was tough. But when you have a moment like that where somebody's, experienced that much loss, but something you've said has helped them in that deep and meaningful way, it cuts right through all that armor, and it changed the way that I looked at everything.
Yeah.
It made me reevaluate the journey that I'm on. And once you know something like that, once you experience something like that, you can't unknow it. You can't forget it. And it stuck with me. And I thought, I didn't ever think anything that I did was all that inspiring. I wasn't trying to inspire anybody. I was just hustling to my goal. But if somebody gets that much out of my very first attempt to try and share, what if I were to put some effort behind this like I have the rest of my professional career? What if I were to actually write a book? What if I were to actually sit down and put together a 60 to 90 to 120-minute keynote presentation and a workshop, and really try and empower people so that they can think differently about the circumstances they find themselves in, so they don't have to feel like victims of whatever's going on in their life, so that they can emerge from their own setbacks that are often before. And so that was really the first moment of that. And since then, yes, I've released Blind Ambition and started keynote speaking. I'll end up doing 50, 60 events this year. I've already got 15, 20 on the books for next year. It's very meaningful work for me. And in some sort of bizarre sort of way in moments like that, when I'm connecting with an individual and helping them get over something significant in their life and empowering them, whether it's personal or professional, it makes the whole journey of going blind sort of worth it. And that's a really bizarre thought to have for the first time. But
I can't even imagine, man. Can't even
and
imagine.
now I realize that
Over the
it was like
last,
this.
I would say, decade in and out of business, it seems to me that people are kind of struck by the level of uncertainty that's going on in our world today. And in your keynotes, you talk to people about how to develop resilience in the face of uncertainty. Give us kind of a brief look at that.
Yeah, well, I think there's this perception that maybe before we knew what was going to happen. And I got a newsflash for you. None of us really knew it was going to happen. Like, the best thing we can do is have the right mindset so that we can adapt to whatever unfolds in front of us, because none of us can predict where things are going. And I'm not sure we would really, I'm not sure we want to. A lot of people, seems like people are looking for things to be easier and not really embracing adversity. And I think that's a shame, because adversity is how we grow. If we never faced any adversity, we would never be able to grow. And so what I do is I break down the anatomy of resilience for people so that they can attach themselves to those circumstances in a way that, by shifting their mindset, they can look at obstacles as opportunities. They can find meaning and purpose in the challenges they face, and they can set themselves up to succeed simply by learning how to attach different meaning to the things that they're facing. So let me give you an example. I have 5 pillars of resilience. The first pillar is you have to recognize that you have the power to choose. So you have to choose your response. You don't get to choose your cards in life, but you alone get to choose how you play your cards. Pillar number 2 is you have to tell yourself the right stories. I went blind in my early 20s. Now, I could have sat around just telling myself that I went blind because I've got terrible luck. But instead, I chose to tell myself that I went blind because I'm one of the very few people on this planet who has the strength and the toughness to overcome it and use it to help other people. Now, technically, both of those stories can be true, where one of those stories, the first one, frames me up to be a victim, where the second story, the better story, is a Jedi mind trick that flips my disability into my strength. It's called cognitive reframing, but essentially what I'm doing is I've taken the disability of going blind and reminded myself that this happened to me because I have unusual mental strength and determination to overcome it and use it to help other people.
Right on.
The third pillar is you have to visualize greatness. Sometimes you have to do that in unfavorable circumstances. I had to figure out how to make blind look good. If I couldn't, how could I ever move towards acceptance? It's a little tongue in cheek, but to get the point across, it's so important that you figure out a way to make sometimes unpalatable circumstances work for you instead of against you. The fourth pillar, real quickly, is where mindset meets action. And it's where we have to get comfortable with discomfort. And so the essence of this is, if you're never getting outside of your comfort zone, then you'll never grow. That's where life begins. And it's where life happens, is outside of our comfort zones. And we could also call them complacency zones, because that's all they are, is they create an opportunity for stagnation. And, if you're not growing, basically you're dying. And so you have to stay comfortable with the uncomfortable so that you can continue to evolve and reinvent yourself over time. The fifth pillar is take advantage of your disadvantages, because every perceived disadvantage offers us some advantage if we can just use it in the right context. So that's a short little thumbnail about the 5 pillars. I organize all my storytelling around those when I give a keynote, and obviously customize it for the audience as well, so that I can make each of those pillars applicable to a challenge that the audience is facing.
Right on. So, Chad, we're approaching the end here, but before I do, I want to encourage our audience, blindambitionbook.com. Order it on Barnes and Nobles, or go to your independent bookseller. And if it's not there, ask for it, and then try barnesandnoble.com, and then Target, and then finally Amazon, if you so choose, or wherever books are sold. It is Blind Ambition. But also, you are filming a PBS docuseries right now. Fill in the blank there.
Yeah, so a lot of what we do with the book is the written word. Obviously, keynotes are on stage, storytelling. How do we reach people where they are? Maybe, they're not coming to a conference where I'm speaking. Maybe the written word isn't the best way to capture those people. So how do we help people with the way that they're approaching their lives and their situations? And so we're doing that through a series, working with the director right now, filming some adventures where it's me doing some stunts that are a little daring and doing some martial arts and jiu-jitsu training as well. And so we've got me talking about the anatomy of resilience, but in the context of adventures, whether it's me jumping out of an airplane over the desert of Dubai or, learning how to fight like a Roman gladiator or, fighting in a jiu-jitsu competition, or we're going to be doing some heli skiing here in the Rockies coming up, jumping out of a helicopter to ski down some backcountry terrain. Just kind of reinforcing those ideas and doing it through some adventures that are fun and a little exciting, and depending on, if you ask my wife, maybe a little too exciting, but gotta have a little fun along the way, and can't let fear control our decision making. And certainly you want to take precautions and have the right safety mechanisms in place, but you can't mitigate all the risk out of everything, because life can happen to any of us at any given time. So we have to live the life of our choosing. Not everybody lives. Everybody's born someday and everybody dies, but not everybody lives in between the lines.
Hey,
so
let's make that dash just as exciting as possible and worthwhile. So, Chad Foster,
Absolutely.
thank you for coming on the Grampian. Just by way of what I noticed from what I read from you and hear from you and now meet you online, you actually are making blind look good, man. Thank you so much for coming on the Grampian. Any parting words for our nation?
Well, appreciate you having me, Jim. I'd say, the most important thing is to make sure you tell yourself the right stories about whatever unfolds in your life. Anchor yourself to gratitude. Learn how to tell yourself stories that, instead of keeping you trapped in that victim mindset, they power you forward with the visionary mindset, and really settle into that discomfort, because as uncomfortable as it is, it's exactly what's necessary to keep moving forward.
All right. Good word from Chad E. Foster. Blind Ambition is the book. Grampian Nation, thanks for tuning in again. And as always, let's be safe out there and have some fun. Right, Chad?
Absolutely.
All right. This is Jim, and I am out. When you get an opportunity, subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast.